When the country began social distancing and then lockdown, Naomi and I went out for several walks and she pointed out a number of rainbows in the windows of our local community. I hadn't noticed them at first, but now realise that you can't fail to miss them. During this pandemic, this symbol has become apparent in almost every part of the country, adorning many homes and workplaces. So why did they appear? It's all part of a national campaign called Chase the Rainbow. The campaign is based around the simple idea of trying to spread a little joy. The rainbow represents hope and positivity during these tough times, and the campaign is helping to bring a sense of unity to our communities. School children have been at the forefront of this. The rainbow trend has gone viral as thousands of children couldn't wait to get involved and make their own positivity rainbow. With schools having been shut down and children being homeschooled, it's a great way to entertain your children and bring families together at home and show everyone that we're in this together. I've seen painted coloured bricks, bunting, Lego, hearts, bottle tops and camper vans depicting rainbows. That have certainly made me smile. Such a simple idea is helping to bring the local community together at a time of separation and isolation. This initiative has gone worldwide, with families around the globe being involved. Rainbows have always been special to me. My very first car was a little green Mini, XBJ 402S, and the first thing I did was put a little rainbow in the back windscreen. When I was 18 and I left home to start my career as a nurse, I arrived in my first accommodation. It was a very dull room on the 8th floor, had a grotty carpet, yellow stained walls, and we shared bathrooms and kitchens for 30 plus students. But within the first couple of hours, I cheered the room up with my posters and a 4-foot rainbow above my bed. The rainbow moved with me for about 6 or 7 moves over the next 3 years. The rainbow is also a very significant image in the Bible, a sign that God gave to Noah as a promise that he would never flood the earth again. God had saved Noah, his family and the creatures he created, and as the flood waters receded, the earth was restored and the animals were able to reproduce and flourish. New life and hope had emerged. The Bible is full of stories of hope, and this hope is central to my faith as a Christian. There are a couple of stories I'd like to share with you which may help you to consider some aspects of hope. The first story is about Zechariah and Elizabeth. It's a story of hope when longing is unfulfilled. A longing unfulfilled can be disheartening. Imagine having been married for a long time, unable to have children, and living in a culture that measured God's love for you by the number of children you have. This is the story of Zechariah and Elizabeth, a couple described as very old and childless. Their story is found in Luke chapter 1. The couple are an example of people who understood the frustrations and heartache of being denied what they yearned for. Perhaps we can relate to this. We may all have had something that we've wanted for a long time, maybe a loved one that we've longed for them to understand and experience faith for themselves. Perhaps it's a struggle with physical or mental health, or maybe relationship issues. Zechariah and Elizabeth show us the ability to trust God in the midst of longing unfulfilled. We know they trusted God because they continued to serve God, and God described them as righteous. The angel appeared to Zechariah with good news, saying Elizabeth was going to have a son while he was serving God as a priest. He could have given up on God altogether, but decided to keep serving God despite his unfulfilled longing. It can be a challenge to keep our hope when we endure ongoing situations. It's easy to lose faith, doubt, and become inward looking. I find this can lead me to stop praying and even expecting God to move. The story of Zechariah and Elizabeth is about the faithfulness of God on what it means to live by faith. God showed his faithfulness with this couple by working to bless their lives even after they waited a long time. This period of lockdown has been a significantly long time for many of us. But this same God will still bless when we feel we've lost all hope. Zachariah and Elizabeth also lived by faith with the conviction that God loved them and wanted to bless them. They had the desire to stay righteous while they waited for their longing to be fulfilled. When we experience periods of waiting, we can have hope by remembering God's faithfulness and choosing to live by faith ourselves. The next character is Moses, and I've entitled it Maintaining Hope When There Appears to Be No Way Out. Difficult times can lead us to the point where we feel powerless, unable to deal with life's challenges. Our current pandemic has put many people in this situation. How can we face a future without regular employment? When will we truly feel connected to friends, family, colleagues who we've been advised to socially distance for so many weeks? God is interested in these times, and it's often when we feel there's no way out that he can move. Moses experienced that same feeling after leading Israel out of Egypt. They were trapped between the Red Sea and an angry Egyptian army. God guided the Israelites to the exact place he wanted them to be, right at the edge of the Red Sea. With the water in front of them and Pharaoh and the Egyptians chasing behind, it was only God who could provide a way out. This experience can occur in our lives from time to time. We feel that we're in an impossible situation, just for God to show us how powerful he really is. I enjoy spending time with people who challenge my thinking and encourage me to see things from a different perspective. God often works outside the box. The Israelites must have been terrified and felt that there was no way out. But nothing is impossible with God. He parted the Red Sea for the Israelites to walk through on solid ground. Maybe we're just too familiar with some of the Bible stories and don't always appreciate the greatness of God. He truly is a God of hope when all else is uncertain. Difficult times will happen to us. It's so easy to feel afraid and powerless. Be encouraged. These are the moments we can see God work at his best. There are many other Bible stories which illustrate how God gives hope in challenging situations, but hopefully these two examples may encourage you to look and think about others. This pandemic has given us the opportunity to stop, think and reflect. It's made me consider, what are my hopes for the future? But I'm also challenged to consider, what are the hopes of others? Our faith is a personal matter, but we shouldn't keep it to ourselves. God has given us tremendous hope for the future, but we are called to share it with those around us. 1 Peter 3:15 says, "Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have." We can do this verbally and also through our actions. I read a lovely article in the Just Regional magazine recently about Alfie. Alfie's a 4-year-old with a passion for tractors. Alfie's Tractor Treat was a very short article about how the local community arranged a surprise for him on his 4th birthday. On the morning of his 4th birthday, a John Deere tractor pulled up outside his house, decorated with balloons and banners. It would be a birthday he'll remember for the rest of his life. His mum finished by saying, "We love the community spirit in Aylsham and have never felt so at home and are truly overwhelmed with all that was done for our son." Made me think, wouldn't it be great if we could be more aware of the hopes of those around us and overwhelm our community with God's love? Another illustration comes from a book I read recently by David Knott, War Doctor, and it's just on the shelf behind me, is the story of a surgeon who has volunteered to work in some of the most dangerous war zones, carrying out life-saving operations in the most challenging situations. He is a man driven by compassion and passion, and noted to be the most experienced trauma surgeon in the world. Facing such atrocities has caused him significant trauma, which culminated in him having a breakdown. An old lady and her pets were the beginning of his journey of recovery, seeking help and actually having renewed hope again. The old lady? She was our queen. David had been invited to a private lunch at Buckingham Palace and was sat at the Queen's left side. Etiquette dictates that the Queen will speak to the person for the second half of the meal sat on the left. I'm going to share you a couple of paragraphs that really moved me from it. The dessert arrived and the Queen turned to me. At first I couldn't hear what she was saying, as my hearing had been damaged by a bomb blast near the hospital in Aleppo. I tried to speak, but nothing would come out of my mouth. It wasn't that I didn't want to speak to her. I couldn't. I simply did not know what to say. She asked me where I'd come from. I suppose she was expecting me to say from Hammersmith or something like that. But I told her I had recently returned from Aleppo. Oh, she said, and what was that like? What was it like? What could I say? My mind filled instantly with images of toxic dust, of crushed school desks, of blooded and limbless children, and of Alan Henning and those other Westerners whose lives had ended up in the most appalling fashion. I don't know why it happened then, or why it should have been the Queen who breached the dam. Perhaps it was because she is the mother of the nation, and I had lost my own mother. My bottom lip started to go, and all I wanted to do was burst into tears. But I held myself together as best I could. I hoped she wouldn't ask me another question about Aleppo. I knew if she did, I would completely lose control. She looked at me quizzically and touched my hand. She then had a quiet word with one of the courtiers who pointed to a silver box in front of her. I watched as she opened the box, which was full of biscuits. These are for the dogs, she said, breaking one of the biscuits in two and giving me half. We fed the biscuits to the corgis under the table, and for the rest of the lunch she took the lead and chatted about her dogs, how many she had, what their names were, how old they were. All the while we were stroking and petting them, and my anxiety and distress drained away. There, the Queen said, that's so much better than talking, isn't it? Queen Elizabeth's instinctive insight into my emotional fragility was remarkable, as was the compassion she showed towards someone she had never met. Perhaps these two examples will motivate you to demonstrate hope to our community. You may be able to make someone's day extra special with a surprise or a gift. You may invite somebody to share a meal, provide a listening ear, or even allow your pet to be therapy. Who knows the way in which God can work when we're open to Him? So as I finish, consider the rainbows you see around you and be reminded that God gives hope as we face the trials and struggles in this life. But remember, not everyone has experienced this, so let's aim to be living rainbows, spreading hope to those that we encounter day to day. Thank you.